the book I wanted to read you. It's Jesus Lives, and it's a pop-up book. I can't remember if it's from when I was a little girl or just one that my mother had when she taught Sunday school, but I thought you might like it. It says, Jesus was sad. Some selfish men did not believe that he was God's son. Even though many people had welcomed him into the city with palm branches and greeted him as king. These wicked men still refused to believe. We'll have him put to death, they said. Jesus knew this, so he went to a beautiful garden to talk to God. He knew that God wanted him to take the punishment for all the wrong things people had done. God wanted him to give his life to save others. Oh God, he prayed, I do not want to die, but I pray that what you want will be done, not what I want. And there's Jesus praying. When Jesus finished praying, he went back to where his disciples were sleeping. As he looked out into the darkness, he saw the bright light of many torches. A crowd was coming up the hill to the garden. Wake up, Jesus told his disciples. My enemies are coming. In a few minutes, the crowd marched into the garden. Soldiers and angry men with clubs. They turned to Jesus and grabbed him. But he did not even try to save himself. The disciples were afraid and they ran away as fast as they could. Jesus let the soldiers tie his hands and take him away. It was still dark when the crowd led Jesus into the city of Jerusalem. Later, they brought him to Pilate, the Roman governor. There they told him ugly lies about Jesus. He is causing trouble in the land, they said. Pilate talked to Jesus. I do not find anything wrong with this man, he told the crowd. But Jesus' enemies would not listen. Put him to death, they cried. They were so angry that Pilate was afraid the crowd would make trouble for him. So at last he ordered his soldiers to put Jesus to death. Here's the crowd being angry. The soldiers obeyed. They marched Jesus through the streets of Jerusalem. Great crowds of people came to see what was going on. Some of the people cried, for they loved the man who had made the sick well, the lame walk, and who had told them how much God loved them. Outside the city, on a hill called Calvary, the soldiers nailed Jesus to a cross. Jesus looked up to God and prayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The Roman officer was surprised. He had never heard any man ask God to forgive those who were killing him. After 6 long hours, Jesus died. The officer looked at him and said, truly, this man was God's son. Jesus was buried in the tomb of a friend, and on the morning of the 3rd day, some women went to visit his tomb. They wondered who would roll back the heavy stone that sealed the tomb, but when they reached it, they were surprised. The big stone had been rolled away. Quietly, the women went into the tomb. It was empty. Now the women were afraid. What would happen? Had someone taken Jesus' body away? Suddenly, 2 angels stood beside them. Jesus is not here, they said. He has risen just as he said he would. The women were so happy that they ran back into the city to tell the disciples the wonderful news. See the empty tomb. Amen. That night, Jesus' disciples met in an upper room, and as they talked, a strange thing happened. Jesus came to them. They thought they were seeing a spirit, and they were afraid. Then Jesus showed them his hands and his feet. The prints of the awful nails that had held him to the cross were still there. Jesus talked to his friends, and then they knew it was Jesus. He had come back to them. How happy they were. You see Jesus? He's not there, and he's there. This is the glorious day. 40 days after Jesus rose from the dead, he took his disciples to a place called the Mount of Olives. There he blessed them, just as he blessed little children who wanted to be near him. And as he did, he was taken up to heaven to be with God, his Father. But Jesus' friends were not afraid. They knew that Jesus would always be near them to help them, and someday they would be with him again. So what a glorious day. I love that. Because we serve a risen Savior. So I thought this book was a good book, and I wanted to read it to you, just to encourage you and just to tell you Happy Easter. But remember why we celebrate Easter, and it is because we serve a wonderful Savior who died but did not stay dead. He is risen. So I pray that you have a wonderful Easter as you celebrate Christ being alive and all that he's done for us.